All right, I think we are live, albeit without a monitor on top of us, so that's going to be fun. My name is Charlie Minato.
And I'm Burkes Whittington.
That camera doesn't look like it's straight.
It doesn't.
All right, well, we're here. This is our 2019 IPCPR recap show. You going to move that mic in front of you, or you just keep leaning over through the entire... Okay.
It'll be all right.
All right, so we are almost done with our IPCPR coverage. We have, I don't know, that's not going to work. We've got, I don't know how many booths left, maybe 20 or so?
Give or take.
To be published. Only, I think, a half dozen or so that need to actually be edited and scheduled. So sometime either tomorrow, there's a small possibility Sunday morning, it's Ellie Blue in... Did Wiesel ever get back to you?
Yes, I should have that up in the next 10 minutes after we get done here.
So Ellie Blue is the lone holdout for information. We'll see if they can get that to us today. And then we will go from there. So today we're going to fix some microphone stands, and then we're going to open a beer.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about some of the things we saw at the show. So I guess we're just going to go right into that beer.
Yes, indeed. I figured that we needed something big for the end of the show. So this is a... Modern Times Modem Tones. It's one of their most popular stouts, most expensive stouts. It's an imperial stout aged in bourbon barrels with vanilla, hazelnuts, and maple syrup. They've had a few different incarnations of this beer, and I have been told that it's very, very good. So we'll find out. I actually have half a membership with another guy.
Yeah, no one has any clue what that means.
You get member beers, yada yada. So let's pour this out and see what we got here. I think it's about 15% ABV, so you have eaten, haven't you?
I've not.
Well, that'll be fun. Nice pour for you there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I've eaten, so I get the lion's share. I feel like this could go very badly.
Poorly.
I see what you did there. Cheers.
Cool. Did you grab some paper towels for when you spilled?
I did not, no.
So that's just gonna...
We'll just leave that there, I guess.
What do we have that could possibly serve as a cleanup that's not something that somebody would be severely offended by? Yeah, that's not really going to get it up.
All
go. Right. So,
I'm not easily offended.
We'll just use the coasters or take that off there.
Oh, okay.
All right, so we're going to start. Patrick Legreed is monitoring the questions, so he will forward them to us. I know that people want to know when we're going to announce the contest winners for various things. I think there's a date on that, and I hope that we haven't gone past that, but my guess is Monday is when we will announce the contest winners for everything. So that includes the Ford Dabit Off contest, the J.C. Newman contest. If you want a Jura State prize, please make sure that you've sent me your address. If you haven't heard back from me, then that means I have not gotten it, and we will send all that information to Jura State on Monday, and then they will send the prizes. They're normally pretty good about sending those quickly. So, a very brief recap of what the trade show is. It's a trade show. There's a lot of new products, both cigars, accessories, as well as usually there's always some business dealings. We've seen 2 announcements so far about personnel changes. Trey Andrews at McAuliffe announced that he had resigned. Rob Norris, who is the head of Altatis, has announced that he is leaving to go join Phantom, which is the parent company of Blue e-cigarettes. He's going to go manage their Canadian division. So there's always a lot of industry happening. Sometimes you see some things like mergers and whatnot. But it's a busy time. There are also elaborate trade show booths. And so I think the first thing we're going to start with is not necessarily the best booths, but the best new features we saw of booths. There weren't a ton of new booths. I mean, at least not from what I saw.
No, there were some companies that have upgraded. I know that, let me see. Let me think off the top of my head.
Great content.
Yes. Crux had a better booth. Okay, so not many, I guess. That's the only thing I can think of. Anybody else? There was somebody else, but
Cavalier had a much more elaborate booth, and they may or may not be considered a new exhibitor, depending on how you want to look at that, since it's sort of a new entity. Who else? Espinosa, obviously, which we'll talk about in a second.
Jeremy Jack had a bigger booth.
Yeah, I mean, there were, I think, people that had bigger booths, but oftentimes, a lot of times, we see with bigger booths, people just kind of add space onto it. And so it's hard to really tell if it's new or not. Was the Room 101 booth new?
Never even stopped by.
I know that Tony Bellato's booth was the same as last year, but I don't know if Room 101's was different. But no, it's always an interesting time. So we have 6 different booth features, one of which is going to be super exciting because there's no images of it. So we're going to start with that. So let me move over to the slideshow. Audio is still working. Here we go. So number 3 on my end is something that I just thought was funny, and Brian Burt is not happy with your decision to manually focus the camera. So number 3 on my end is...
you focused that.
No, the decision to manually focus it. So number 3 is this, which is the Nat Sherman booth, which looks pretty much the same as it did last year. There is one notable new feature, and it is that, which is a very nice cardboard cutout of Michael Horklotz. This is kind of how slim the pickings were this year. I will say we have a cardboard cutout right in front of us, and the one of Michael Horklotz is much better done than the one we got of Manolo.
No offense to Manolo.
But they apparently went all out. So this was Michael was not happy about this, but they brought the cardboard cutout to dinner. It got stolen a couple times. There were multiple cardboard cutouts. There were body doubles. I thought it was a nice feature. I think that at least one of the days the cardboard cutout might have been actually better dressed than Michael. But
Can we get one of those?
I tried to see. I'm sure that they will probably now send it to us.
I feel like we should have an entire wall of these cutouts now.
I asked for that. So that is my number 3. And your number 3, Brooks?
Yes. So one of the booths that I was very, very impressed with was the Ace Prime booth. I had no idea what it was, honestly, until I ran into it. It looked like a laser show going on, and just lots of different things. They've got all the new cigars on stands there with TVs behind them and running movies. And the booth was right in front of our bunker where we were on the floor. And every time you walked out, it's a substantial booth. It's not something that you look at and go, whatever. No, they spent some money, and they were doing some things with it that I hadn't seen before. It was very well done, place for interviews and a place to have meetings in the back. A nice room to have meetings in the back. It was well done, and I thought that it was something that a lot of these booths are not they're not really thought of in terms of it doesn't seem like people are thinking of how they are seen when you walk up. It's more of a, let's just get this stuff out there, and here's a, open space, and here's a couch and that kind of thing. And it's obvious, I think, that these people, the company had spent some time and effort and money thinking about exactly how this thing was presented to people who just walked up and had no idea who they were, because it's something that makes you stop and actually look at it. And that's not the same with every booth on the floor, for sure.
Yeah, I'm 95% sure that's a prefabbed booth. So the booth that Cavalier had, which I thought was a substantial upgrade, was certainly a prefab booth. So I don't know. The one thing I found interesting about the Ace Prime,
a package, you just pick it out of a package.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
No, literally, when we were going to buy our furniture, you could pick out the booth and then you just send them the graphics. I think the Ace Prime one's a little bit more involved in that, but it's a pretty similar story. The one thing I would say about the Ace Prime booth that I thought to be somewhat interesting is that they had that gigantic 2-story structure, but there was no use for it. It was just a big display wall. Seemed sorry?
Yeah, they had a huge movie,
but
playing on it.
The amount of money that they cost them to get that.
It was a good movie,
I guess. I'm curious to see what happens with Ace Prime. They made a big splash at the trade show.
They did,
but I don't know. Their booth looked unbelievably busy all the time because they had an insane amount of staff.
They did have yes. I mean, there was never a moment that I didn't walk in there when somebody was asking me, can I get you a drink? Can I get you a cigar?
Well, but like
Can I
if
get
you
a,
walked by the booth like before the
price
show
list?
opened, like there was like a dozen people there, and it didn't seem like they were there to be retail customers. So anyway, number 2 is an interesting one. I've tried our best to give you the viewers at home, who hopefully now, Brian Burt, the autofocus is hopefully better for you. We've tried to give you like a diverse group of options so that way we can talk about more things. But I struggled to kind of come up with something else for this. And this was also my number 2. So I just figured we might as well just combine them and talk about it. It certainly deserves to be talked about quite a bit. It is the aforementioned Espinosa booth. If you're looking at it and wondering what is so special about it, it is that it is cardboard. So the entire booth is made of cardboard, including those displays that you see the Las Seis Provincias on and the 601. And in the back area, there was in fact a cardboard door that like led to like a storage area where they may or may not have been making espresso. And Eric Espinosa Jr. is widely known for his making one of the better, if not the best, cafecitos in the cigar industry. And so that booth weighed 900 pounds, which is incredibly light for a trade show booth because it's all cardboard. And the big reason why this is important is
that's 3 of me.
Cool. So
That's pretty light.
The big reason why this is important is because of something called drayage, which the shipping cost of like shipping the booth from Miami to Las Vegas is what it is. It's not cheap, but it's not that bad. But drayage, which is the process of getting the booth from wherever it kind of happens to be outside the convention center into where it needs to go in the convention center, those shipping costs are insane. And so many companies with heavier booths spend tens of thousands of dollars to move a booth 300 feet. And this certainly did not cost anywhere close to that. And although I think the plan was to take it back, like they could have just recycled the whole booth.
Yeah, that was my question. I saw Patrick mention this on his top 3 things. But I didn't know. I didn't read that if they decided to keep it and just recycle it, or if it was something that they just redo every year.
I talked to Eric, and he said that he was going to take the booth back to Miami. So, I mean, it didn't cost. They could have put it in the FedEx truck for all it mattered. I mean,
it was pretty cool, and I'm not sure that I'm sure there were some people who walked in there who had no idea that it was made of cardboard.
When I walked by it initially, I didn't think about that until the one place where you really got a sense that it was cardboard from a distance is if you ever saw anyone going into the back of the booth. Like, it reminded me of like growing up as a kid and getting like a cardboard like castle type thing, because the door had the same sort of flexibility that a cardboard, child's toy door has essentially.
Indeed.
So, yeah, and it didn't catch on fire, which is always a good thing at the IPCPR Trade Show. So, number 1 on my list is the Dabit Off Experience room. So, I'm going to play the video. Hopefully this works, and yeah, we'll see what happens.
Hello everybody, welcome to IPCPR 2019. I'm Klaus Kellner at the Dabit Off booth, and I'm ready to take you through our new experience rooms that are going to take you through our new campaign, Taste the Elements for Dabit Off, the Black Label. So first of all, we have Dabit Off Nicaragua. In Dabit Off Nicaragua, it's all about fire, so please come on in. Dabit Off Nicaragua is from fire comes intensity. So we have 19 active volcanoes in the country of Nicaragua, and specifically 2 active volcanoes in the island of Ometepe. That is a very key tobacco grown there for the Dabit Off Nicaragua blend. It's going to be a cigar that is very Habano-like, very Nicaragua cigar, but also blended the Dabit Off way. So from fire comes intensity. Later on, we move over to earth. So from earth comes complexity. And here you are transported to the Dominican Republic. We have actually created a room to simulate what the Yamasa farm looks like with its reddish soil. And of course, up on top, you also have 100% shade grown. We have also brought tobacco from this year's crop, so we can play with this tobacco, see its elasticity, see its wrapper. And this is from this year's crop, and is going to be great quality wrapper for Yamasa cigar. That's going to give you very spicy, earthy components coming from that high iron soil. And last but not least, we have the Escurio room, which is the party room. So please follow me this way. And in this party room, you're going to be feeling water. From water comes originality. And we are teletransported to Brazil right now, where we are not only experiencing the freshness, the smells of Brazil, but also we are pairing it with cocktails that here Doug will nicely pour one for me if he would. Thank you so much. So we've created these cocktails with cachaça rum, and it has also cayenne pepper and also some lemons. A little lemonade. It's going to be nice and spicy and sweet, and it's going to be pairing very well with your Escurio cigar. For Escurio, water is very important because Escurio tobacco comes from the Bay of Todos los Santos. All the water, it rains about 1,100 millimeters, gets poured down on the tobacco during their winter season. And we use this tobacco for the Escurio that adds nice spices and sweetness. It's great experience rooms, 3 beautiful locations where you're teletransported to 3 different locations and give you the sense of what each one of these cigars are. I truly hope that you guys have enjoyed this, and please come by.
All right, Burkes, any question or any comments about your drug use?
No. I did some stuff when I was younger I wasn't proud of. Anyway, it looked pretty awesome. I was unable to actually get there because it wasn't my booth, but I've heard that it was just amazing when you walked in.
Yeah, no, it was, for those of you that didn't go in it, there were smells that were being pumped in. So with the first and the final room, and then the second room, they just had the tobacco, which they had sort of watered, and then it opened up and it smelled like you were in a tobacco field. And so, it was extremely impressive. I've long complained that I think that one thing that this trade show has lacked on, both from the IPCPR standpoint as well as the manufacturers, is education. And Dabit Off certainly has made big strides with, not that was the most educational of thing, but it certainly was much more interactive than just here's a cigar box on a display, even if it is on fire, a la the Placencia booth.
Not really on fire,
but sort of. And they also were doing like educational seminars throughout the day, which I think is, something that when you compare like our trade show to big trade shows, other industries type trade shows like auto shows and things like that, education's a huge part of what happens. And so hats off to Dabit Off. I thought that was extremely well done. You went into the Jura State, sort of had a experiential room as well.
Yeah, for their 20th anniversary of the acid line, they did a thing where you walk into a
room,
a phone booth of sorts, and then go into a room that was all made up and had a whole bunch of stuff around it, and you sign things and that kind of thing. Nothing like this at all. It was nice, and it was cool, and it was different for sure. And I agree with you about the having to do, we should be doing more in terms of having people to educate them and that kind of thing. But there's a reason that the booths that these are at are the larger manufacturers. It costs a lot of money to do something like this. I mean, you have to have the space, you have to have the knowledge to be able to do it and put it together and that kind of thing. And these smaller guys are just not going to be able to do that. So kudos to Dabit Off and to Jura State as well, although obviously in a somewhat lesser manner in that regard. But kudos to Dabit Off. I've heard it was just everybody went in there thought it was amazing.
Well, and they give away free alcohol, which is always
man, I know I should have gone.
Always a good thing. So number one, and I just can't wait for this one, Burkes. So your number one is the.
Did I put that as number one?
It was the top of your list.
I think I meant to. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I was wandering around the second day, and we walked outside. We were walking outside, and basically, this is a lounge right out. You can't smoke when you walk outside of the convention center. And so this is basically a lounge that I did not get a photograph of for some reason. That you basically can sit and finish your cigar before you walk out, and you don't have to throw it away. It was a very nice lounge looking thing. It was better than a lot of the booths on the floor, and really, really well done. And I thought it was a great idea to have something like that right up front, where the last thing you see and the first thing you see when you walk. Oh, well, not the first thing, because Jura State's right in front of it, but right behind it. But the last thing you see when you walk out the door is this thing that says, "Hey, have a seat, have a drink and in a nice, comfortable chair, and finish your cigar."
So I don't think this is new though.
It may not be new.
I actually think that Nat
certainly didn't see it last year.
sponsored it. I wonder if Patrick has texted me about this. He has texted me about it, but not about that particular. But I think that Nat Sherman used to sponsor it, so I don't know if it's like actually a La Polina initiative or if it's like the IPCPR has set this up and excuse me, and somebody sponsors it. I mean, like, I'm not sure it's not a bad thing, but also like it's not like the lounge is in between the hotel or the.
Oh no! It seems
I think the real upgrade maneuver here is if they got some golf carts and then they put like some sort of coverings on them so the smoke wouldn't go out, and then they would drive you to the part of the casino where you could start smoking again.
Wow.
Which would, by the way, only be like 75 feet.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That's.
Can we want to sponsor that?
We should get right on that.
The hotbox golf carts.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. So
that's a great idea, Charlie.
Now that we've accomplished that, I think it's going to be all uphill from here. Somebody remarked, I don't know if it was Brian Burt or if it was somebody else, but somebody said they thought that was actually the La Polina booth when they walked in.
Yes, it was fairly large. It was not a small little thing with a couch.
Very nicely done.
It was very nicely done.
As the picture would have shown.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so top accessories. I want to say, so maybe we'll go back to you and I's faces. I don't know how you did your list, although I'm pretty certain that we did them differently.
I was drunk, so
I decided to do mine based off of the accessories that I like, the accessories that I liked that I would actually purchase. Otherwise, it would be basically a whole bunch of ST DuPont LA Blue stuff and the $9,000 ashtray. So mine's, like, I think a little bit different than yours.
In terms of how we chose them, yes.
Well, and in terms of what's on there, because there's no like $9,000 ashtrays. So anyway, so here we go. My number 3 is we'll see how much this is. It's the S2 DuPont Perfect Ping, which I still don't know the price of because wasn't in the packet of information that S2 DuPont sent over. But anyway, there's 2 different models. One is basically the size of a Line 2. The other one, it reminds me of like a cross between the Gatsby and the Line 1, which is the one that's in the picture on your screen there. And the concept here is that these lighters have been made both to like mimic a classic style and then but really to produce a very loud ping, and in sort of like a in tune, like where DuPont thinks the ping should be. It is, I didn't have any sort of like decibel meter to test it, but it is noticeably like louder than any other DuPont I've ever used, and in a little bit like more consistent of a pitch. Not that this is an audio blog. So once again, 2 models, a couple finishes. I really like the fact that they're like classic looking lighters, and I certainly like lighter with 2 E's apparently. I certainly am interested to see how much they're priced at. If they're around $1,000, it's something that I certainly, maybe for a gift for myself, I might pick up. But $2,000 or $3,000 would be a bit of a tough sell for me.
So I just want to make sure I understand this.
Yep.
This is just a regular ST DuPont lighter of some sort that
relatively speaking,
that they basically have made so it's louder when you open it.
Mm-hmm.
This is the
finish on it is also
the selling point.
I also like the finish. Like, even if it was just like a Line 2 finish, like, it's not the most exciting thing in the DuPont booth by any stretch of the imagination. But here's the thing. I like the complication lighter and the Apollo thing and the water lighter that no one ever saw used, because I don't think it ever worked in Vegas. But those things aren't particularly functional. Even the Legrand, which I have one and carry around quite frequently, is super bulky compared to. It's almost to the point where you could carry I think it actually probably is thinner to carry a Slim 7 and a Line 2 than it is, and probably cheaper, to carry a Legrand, because it's so much thicker and bigger. And so, whereas these lighters are as thin as the Line 2 and not incredibly, extremely bulky. I mean, like, I actually think that the Legrand, the more and more I use it, like, you have to be willing to have your pockets look awkward to put it in there, because it's so thick, particularly with a case on it.
Yeah, I mean it's a large lighter, no doubt. And
But I think it's like with the case, I think it's probably over an inch thick. Because the way the case is, I don't have it in my pocket, but the way the case is designed, the flap, like it's got a fairly substantial amount of padding on both sides, and then the top of the case goes over it, and there's a button on it. So it ends up being like it's an extremely bulky package.
Well, I look forward to seeing how expensive those are.
You and me both. All right, your number 3, which I'm not even sure counts, but it's a conversation for Patrick.
I forget what it is, though.
It's an ashtray.
Oh, yeah, the ashtrays. So I saw these in the Dapper cigar booth. Very, very interesting. I can't really pronounce it, but these were very interesting. They are actually molded from, inspired by the faces of salamanders. And very interesting. They had some very, very cool looks to them. The white one I wasn't as impressed with. But the
nope. Sorry, I'm trying to go back to that.
Yeah. They had some with a darker interior that looked really, really nice. They're expensive. Like that. Yeah, that's it right there. Yep. They're expensive as hell. They're probably
they're not that bad.
Okay.
They're $280 to $565. I mean, they're not $9,000.
No, certainly not.
I think I convinced Taeyeon to buy one, by the way.
Really?
Yep.
Just one?
I don't know if it was, but at least
Not
one.
afford more than one.
No, I think they're probably good.
But it was gorgeous, and I was really, I'm
Did
always
you pick one
looking
up?
for different, huh?
Did you pick them up?
No, I didn't even ask. I was afraid I'd break it.
So I was on the website yesterday because Patrick put a news story up that I'm not entirely sure what it was for, although I appreciate it because I got to read about these ashtrays. Because they're not new. And is Dapper distributing them? Because it wasn't clear in Patrick's story if that was the case.
I did not ask. I was just running by.
But they are available for purchase. And one thing I found interesting was that the big one, they weigh up to 22 pounds, which is why I was curious if you picked one up.
No.
And I think they start at like 11 pounds, which seems extremely heavy.
Indeed.
But anyway, yeah, no, I was going to put this on my list until you saw it was on yours. But also not new. They've been around since 2015. But I look forward. We'll probably get one here in the office. Probably not the one that you like, though, because sucks to suck. All right, so number 2, since we've already kind of previewed it, and I think the only thing that, well, no, that's untrue. One thing that was on our pre-show list, our top 5 accessory previews, is the Zycar Enzo. And I actually left the trade show more impressed with this than I was going into it because of one particular fact. I don't know if you're aware of this, because did you play around with it at all?
I did, yeah.
All right, so you would be aware of it. Do you want to spoil what the...
No.
Okay.
You go right ahead. It's your list, buddy.
So when Zycar sent the press release out, they said that it was... They gave like the dimensions of it, and the dimensions were exactly the same dimensions as we measured the Zycar XO cutter, which is very similar to this. So at the time, we thought the one difference was that this is a single operation. It's still 2 blades, but rather than having to have 2 handles, you have just that singular blade that you see pop up, whereas the XO would have the bottom part would also come out, like the top part is in the picture on the right. And so we thought that was basically the only difference. And I think I remarked on that very show that, like, I think that will be helpful. But one of my other issues with the XO is that it was so bulky. And as it turns out, the Enzo is not the same dimensions. So it's the same diameter, but it's not the same width. It is actually, I think, just slightly under half of the width.
Yes, I photographed them both together, and they look essentially. It looks essentially half the width.
Yeah. So
visually.
So anyway, there were 2 prototypes that Zycar had in the Quality Importers booth. And I got to play around with both of them. They were one of them was more magnetized than the other because it uses magnets to try to help keep the blade so it can create resistance. But I'm curious to see what the final one looks like, but I was pleasantly surprised to find out that it was going to be much thinner because very similar to the Legrand, one of my issues, my 2 big issues with the Zycar, which you claim is one of the best cutters in the market, and I don't doubt in terms of in terms of cleanliness of cuts, I think it does a great job. But one of my big issue, or my two big issues with the XO, are that it's extremely bulky and that it's so big, and with the two handles, it's kind of awkward to use, at least for me.
I certainly don't find it awkward to use, but I can understand how somebody could. In terms of the Enzo, this was a prototype. The two that they showed us were prototypes, and so you have to always have a you always have to say that that's the case. It's not; these are not the finishes that are going to be there or anything of that nature. And it's probably going to be very different in terms of how it feels and how it functions in an actual real world position. Because I couldn't even get the blade up. It was difficult for me to even use it.
Oh no, the ones that I saw, they were functional.
And so, for me, at least, I looked at it and said, "This is not something that I really give a." I didn't. I love the look of it. I love the idea of it, and I'm obviously withholding any final judgment until I actually see the actual production models. But I can see how it would be very awesome to have a thinner cutter that actually, you only have to use one. One push with the one blade down and that kind of thing. So I look forward to getting one and reviewing it for sure, as I've said since the beginning.
All right, number 2 on your list, Brooks.
Yes. What is it? Oh, right, the Warfighter, ashtray. So I mentioned this in one of my top 3 things as well, and I'd keep coming back to it because it's really, really cool. Very unique and not something that you're going to be able to get anywhere else, most likely. Although I haven't really looked at that. But it's basically an ashtray that is made from the hull bottom of a M1A1 tank round. I'm a pacifist, so I don't know what they're called, but they're they take the thing that remains, the end that remains, cap, I guess, and they polish it down and make an ashtray out of it. $125, $129,
$125.
And they're not done a lot. They're obviously limited by the number of times that the M1A1 shoots, and they have to be able to get.
Does the pricing go down if we go to war?
That's a good question that I didn't think about asking.
Should ask the questions.
So, yeah.
No, I think it's an interesting piece. It's not like my favorite aesthetic, but I always I'm appreciative of the fact that it's like
it's unique.
It's reuse.
It's unique. It's something that made me stop and think, wow. And Patrick pointed it out to me. I'd done the booth. They didn't even mention it to me. And so Patrick went back to me as he was walking by and said, "Hey, you need to look at this thing." And I was like, "All right, cool." So I went back there and asked, "Oh yeah, we have this too." And I'm like, "Okay, great." So I wouldn't have even known about it other than that. But they're very cool, and it's something that will definitely be a conversation piece if you have one.
And one of the better design booths. Not my favorite aesthetic in terms of our office isn't decorated in that manner, but the Warfighter booth is a big tent. It looks like a military outpost. It's very much on brand.
It's yeah. You know exactly what you're walking into when you get there.
All right. My number 1 is from LA Blue, and it is 2 different models of cigar scissors. So they've got the square blade ones that you can see on the outside, and then the inside they've got some that fold up into that circular case. I think it's safe to say that the site collectively has been somewhat skeptical about LA Blue's hand accessories so far. I've always liked the designs, although I've always felt like they've kind of sort of come with some impediments. They've always seemed like they were maybe a bit bulkier than they needed to be. But this is someone that really enjoys cigar scissors, right up my alley. And also not priced like crazy. Certainly not the most affordable cutters, but at $200 to $250 for LA Blue hand accessories. It was less than I was expecting, and I was told the response at the trade show was quite well. I would imagine so, and I certainly plan on having Halfwheel pick up a pair of each. We'll review them, and or review one of them probably, and then keep the rest around the office. They're not, scissors are certainly not something that you take around for the most part because they're quite clunky. But I enjoy cutting cigars with cigar scissors.
It looks like they need a holster with them.
I would be willing to bet that they have some leather goods.
The round one reminds me of the Kroll, the weapon on Kroll.
Cool.
You remember that movie?
I don't know. I think your son's going to think it's a Pokeball.
Let's see, what was that, 83?
No, I wasn't born.
It had a glaive.
Cool.
Big thing you threw and it came back.
It's wonderful.
Very awesome movie. Anyway, sorry, what was I talking about? The cutters. Yeah, I don't really care with as you know with scissors very often. Those look very awkward.
Except when you're reviewing them.
Except when I'm reviewing.
Don't you have a pair to review shortly? Some German-made scissors.
I don't know honestly. I hadn't really thought.
Yeah, they're like the anodized like black scissors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Bought them
but
like
for around
a
the
year ago.
offices, you said would probably be pretty awesome.
Yep. All right. So, your number one, Burkes Whittington.
Yes. So we've already talked about this at length. The
Apollo.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah. The Apollo lighter. Very impressive. I did walk by and see it, and it's very impressive in person. As you mentioned, it's not something that you're going to be buying, or at least I'm not going to be buying anytime soon. But as a aesthetically pleasing work of art, it's amazing. There's no doubt about that. It's a showstopper, and it does work. It's just an amazing looking piece that I looked at, and I stared at it for moments because I really thought that it was really awesome. So
yeah, look, it's impressive. I think that it is impressive by itself. I think it gets a lot less impressive when you look at other ST DuPont items of similar price points. I don't know if the the electrolysis lighter was working, that would have been super impressive. Not $30,000, but that would have been like, oh wow, they really, and certainly like the ambition to do that. But I struggle with some of the DuPont stuff because it's so impressive, but also like they're just playing a different game. They're not trying to sell. I mean, that piece is limited to 8 pieces. They're probably going to sell 5 of them if they're lucky. They told me it sold well, which could mean they sold 1 or 2. But they probably didn't sell out because otherwise they would have said they sold out. So it's just a different, like if you told one of these other companies like, hey, you have a $30,000 price point and you only need to make 8 of them, but you don't even need to sell 8 of them, what could you do? And while it's super impressive and we haven't seen very many people try other accessories at that price point, it also is not as impressive as, because DuPont does this every year. They come out with crazy things.
Well, that's the thing is that, every year they come out with crazy things, and every year I'm not, there are some that I like and some that I don't. And this one was really, it really hit all the numbers for me. Yeah, no, I'm not going to be buying one. I'm not going to be using one. But as an artistic endeavor that actually can be used, unlike the water one apparently, as an artistic endeavor that can be used, well, it's amazing.
I guess I struggle with this one because it's basically they bedazzled the line 2 very well. Like I like the lighter more than I like the base.
I think that's.
But no, they took a line 2.
I think you're.
They took a line 2 lighter and they put some jewels on it. Like they didn't change anything functionally with it, and that's I guess where I struggle with this is that so many of these pieces, like the hot air balloon last year, like that was impressive because it was like a beautiful art piece, but like also, and it made sense I guess with the hot air balloon and the fire or whatever. But like everything that was crazy about it had nothing to do with being a cigar accessory. It was just a piece of art, and I would be willing to bet that for $30,000, if we gave you the option, you'd probably buy different art.
Certainly.
And certainly for $300,000 last year with the hot air balloon, that would not be the piece of art that I would buy. Though it was, for a cigar accessory, super impressive. So, whereas other times, like you remember last year with the boat?
I do.
Like I thought that was well done, like where like they didn't change any of the functionality of the lighter, but they really made... and for those of you who use the nautical, the 7 Seas thing, they really made pieces of that really fit into the aesthetic, I think, a lot better than I would argue this, where it honestly, like the lighter looks like it should be like a Blink-182 album cover. They have no, it'll make sense to you when you look at it. Okay. All right, so we're going to move on to our top 5 cigars. Check, make sure.
Do we have questions or something, or do that after?
Yeah. All right, so number 5 on my list.
Wait. What are these cigars we want to try now? So now that they've been announced,
I don't know.
And everything?
Whatever you constructed them on. So my number 5 is the Acid Cuba Arte, which isn't those are the boxes. I'm curious to try this because you smoked the Acid 20th.
I did.
Did you smoke Cuba Arte?
I did not.
So I'm curious to try both of them because I want to know, did they try to restrain the flavoring at all, so that the cigar could be appreciated oddly less mainstream but more by like regular cigar smokers, or did they just say, screw it, it's an acid, we're just gonna make an acid?
Is that a question or?
Yeah, well, for the 20th, I guess you can speak on that.
Yes, indeed. The 20th is absolutely that way. It starts out. It's got a sweetened cap, and so you know immediately when you start smoking it that it's something that is different. But it goes away after about a third, and
the sweetened cap or the
sweetened cap
overall infusion
dissipates. But the infusion continues to die down as you continue, and at the end, it was essentially a normal, a regular cigar. There's no doubt that the infusion is still there, but in terms of being overwhelming or anything like that, no. And in fact, they told me that that's exactly what they wanted. They wanted something that was going to bridge the gap between flavored cigars and real cigars. Something that a real cigar...
Not real cigars. Traditional cigars.
Traditional cigars, excuse me. Something that a traditional cigar smoker could smoke. And I think it is, absolutely. I told him that I'd buy some if it didn't have the sweetened cap on it.
Well, and if you didn't
annoying.
have to buy 5 boxes of the Hoya de Nicaragua.
Well, no... yeah,
at those price
I didn't
points.
say 5. I think I said 3. But yes,
it was a couple $1,000s that you committed
to. So I told him I would smoke the hell out of them. It was actually very enjoyable to me, considering the fact that it's an infused cigar. But it was built specifically for that, so that people can go, oh wow, that's not as infused as I thought it was going to be. Maybe they have something else that's that way too.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, because and I think that readers of our site, the retailer readers, and certainly the people in the industry know this, but a lot of the consumers, like, they don't really care about acid. And I certainly understand that, but the reality is that, Jura State sells so much acid. It's an incredible number. Flavored cigars are a gigantic part of the market, and so it's curious to see with these 2 releases where, and I don't know, some of the acid consumers certainly care. They're out, like, they're everything that your typical Fuente fanboy or Taiwan fanboy is, but they are with acids. So they're out there collecting all the limited edition acids, all the different tin sets, the sampler packs, the hats, whatever. And then there's like the bulk of the acid customers, much like the bulk of the Fuente customers, who like don't really care about limited edition stuff. So 20th anniversary, in particular Cuba Arte, is an interesting thing to me, and I'm curious to try it. I know I was on Monday on Developing Palate Show, and they had asked whether I thought that, or the panel thought that Acid 20th would make the consensus. I said no to that. I think Cuba Arte has a shot, just because I think that I think Jura State's going to make a bigger push to try to make sure they get that in hands of the collective cigar media. But it will struggle because there's a lot of, not a lot, but there certainly are some publications that have said, like, straight up, we won't review flavored cigars. I think we review more flavored cigars than anyone else does at this point, and it's still a small percentage of what we do overall.
Yeah, and it's not. I don't believe that it's on our side. I don't think it's something that we just think to ourselves, we're not going to do that. I mean, we will review anything that has
clearly
tobacco in it. That's cigars.
No, look,
but,
I mean,
but the idea is that I think that they really wanted to have that. They specifically went to build this as something that can bridge the gap, and I think that they succeeded.
All right, so we're going to move a little bit quicker through the next 9. So you're number 5.
Yes. All right.
I can't wait to hear you pronounce this. 3, 2, 1.
This is the new Warped.
Cool. What's the name of the new Warped?
Selection?
That's part of the name.
Something?
Yeah, it's also in there.
Selection.
That is the Warped Flor de Valle Selection de Valle. What's interesting is that one of the other writer at Smoking Stogie for so many years, same name, which apparently you just weren't pronouncing correctly all these years.
I never what?
Steve?
That was his last name?
Yeah.
That was his Valley.
Well, that may have been how he butchered it, but no, it was spelled the same.
It's his name. I think he would know how to say it.
You'd be surprised. Shout out to Steve if you're watching.
Shout out to Steve if you're around. Wow,
It'd be great to talk to you. Yeah,
long time ago. Give us a call. So this was on my list for the for before the show as well, and I still haven't smoked it.
Or figured out how to pronounce it.
Or figured out how to pronounce it. Valle, I actually know it now. This is a 109 cap on this, a new blend, and I've heard very good things about it from people who have smoked it. And I'm always looking forward to trying something new from Warped and Kyle, and so I've got one somewhere, and I'll smoke it at some point.
I feel like this cigar has actually been dethroned on your own list about, like, do you think when you left the show, did you think this was the Warped you most wanted to try?
Yes.
So you saw, maybe you did or didn't, because it went up a couple hours ago, but the new Lario Rojo, which is the cigar that comes in 50-count cabinets at Christmas with the red ribbon. Did you see what the new size is on that?
I did not.
So it's a Lonsdale with the 109 cap.
Well, it's very nice. That's very nice. I'll have to try that as well.
I'm sure you will.
But
yeah, I feel like if given the choice, you probably would take the Lonsdale.
I do prefer,
regardless of what the blend is. I feel like at this point you're taking a Lonsdale with a 109 cap.
I do prefer Lonsdale over any number of different sizes.
Okay, so continuing the trend of things that we're going to probably butcher the pronunciation of, my number 4 is, which was not very promoted, is the CAO Orellana.
I'd make fun of you, but I have no idea what it even says. So.
Yeah, it's named after
Cursive.
it's Spanish. It's named after the person who actually discovered the Amazon River. Sorry, the person of the old world that discovered the Amazon River.
I think people knew about it long before that.
No. Sorry, the dude from Spain who discovered the Amazon River, not the local people who knew about it from the time that they were born. It is the follow-up or the latest in the CEO's Amazon Basin series. I remember I was thinking back when I was putting this on the list, we were in I Heart Burgers, this had to have been 5 years ago at the trade show, and we used to sort of distribute cigars before we left Vegas. We no longer do that, and there was the Sippy Cup incident, and you would come back, you had been to the general booth.
Sorry, why are we talking about this?
It's related to this, and you were like, you have to try the CAO Amazon Basin. There was canoes. They had to go to like parts of the world that were undiscovered and get the tobacco, and it's only available once every 2 years. And I was like, this is absolutely crazy. And the idea that they're going to get consumers to buy into this is even more crazy. But as it turned out, if Burkes Whittington has ever been right about a cigar from left field in his life, I would argue the CEO of Amazon Basin was that. He called it from, I think, before he smoked it, or maybe he had smoked it, I don't know. But he made it very clear to us that we needed to try it, that it was going to be something special, and he thought it was going to like be a big thing. And I don't think anyone, including Burkes at that time, thought that, or General for that matter, thought that the Amazon Basin series was going to become what it did. I mean, it's been 3 cigars. They've all been fantastic. Some of them made our top 25 list. I believe some of them made the consensus list. They sell out consistently. They've been priced well. The cigars are just good, regardless of what kind of story we're telling about the tobacco.
Yeah, it's a good blend. Hope they don't screw it up somehow.
Yeah, what was weird about that was so General like put out press releases for pretty much everything that was in the booth except that, and they were like, "Oh, it's here." It's literally was like just on a shelf. And they were like, so yeah, we're just kind of showing it off. And you're like, all right, well, like, do you have like pricing? And they're like, oh yeah, we think we do. And then they didn't have the canoe and the things and the whole installation thing. That picture. There was 2 boxes, I want to say, of it.
I like the canoe
next to one another, like on a shelf in the background. And I'd seen it, and so I was like, oh, I should ask them about this. But like, fortunately, they did it without being prompted. But it was very much an afterthought, which seems odd. Although I think if they had done efforts to promote it, it would have gotten very confusing because they had 2 other big CEO releases they wanted to promote, and this rightfully I think would have overshadowed. Certainly Session, maybe not the V19 because it's part of Flathead, which CEO's done very well with. But it was. If there was an afterthought in the general booth, it was either this or Odyssey Sweet Tips.
Well,
which is a sweet tipped bundle cigar. So
I haven't tried this version,
right.
So we'll see how that goes. Did they give you one?
No, not that I'm aware of. Number 4 on your list.
Yes. The Sobremesa Brûlée. This is Steve Sokka's one of Steve Sokka's newest releases this year. It is the Sobremesa.
Yeah, it's a
blend.
Sobremesa.
Internal blend, and replaced with a Connecticut wrapper. And he went about trying to find a Connecticut that is, a lot of the Connecticut's these days are really more towards marketed towards a little bit more medium body, smokers, people who are looking for a little bit more strength to things. And he says he was trying to blend something that's very, very classic in terms of Connecticut, mild, flavorful, and very, very complex. And I've smoked one, and it is all of those things, extremely mild. Not something that you are. I mean, it's noticeably mild, but it's the one that I had was quite good. So I'm looking forward to smoking another one after. I was in Vegas, so I'm looking forward to smoking another one after it has a little bit of time.
Yeah, I don't know what to make. I struggle with this New Age Connecticut, and we certainly promoted it both at our former sites and at Halfwheel. But to me, Connecticut cigars have always been an interesting one because classic Connecticut cigars, like your Monte Cristo Whites, maybe not so much the Macanudo, the super mild end of it, but the Monte Cristo White to me has always been a cigar. It's been super mild in nicotine. It's been medium in flavor, medium in body, but super peppery. And not a cigar that I would honestly give to someone to start out with because of, and it's not the Monte Cristo White's problem. It's just kind of how the cigars have oftentimes been. They've had a lot of pepper without anything else to go along with it. And so one of the things that I appreciated in sort of the New Age Connecticut with the Oliva Connecticut Reserve or with the Intemperance EC is that they weren't that much stronger in terms of nicotine, but they had a ton more body and flavor and a lot more going on underneath a lot of pepper. And so I don't know what to make of that. I haven't smoked the Sobremesa Brûlée. I'm certainly interested to try it. I think that if I could go back in time, what I would try to do, instead of branding New Age Connecticut's as Connecticut's that had a little bit more body, which is I think what we did, and not just us, but kind of everyone involved here, is to separate between the cigars with the Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper and the cigars with American Connecticut wrapper, because there is a difference there, and there's a flavor difference that shows up. But I can certainly understand the Aquitaine is a different but the Aquitaine's not Connecticut.
That's not Connecticut.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a bad example. But
New Wave Connecticut, maybe?
No, not even that's got the strength. Like the cane, I guess the reason why I thought of the Aquitaine, the Cro-Magnon Connecticut, with a Connecticut wrapper on it, that's a different Connecticut. The cane Connecticut prototypes that Brian Shirley was rolling back in the day, different Connecticut.
One of those.
But most of the quote unquote New Age Connecticut's they're not that much stronger.
No, and this the interesting thing for me was that you were talking about the pepper with the and it was definitely something that you notice on some of the Connecticut's, but this has virtually none. I mean, it's a balanced smoke, at least from the one I tried. Again, that's just one, but it's a balanced smoke. It's sweet, it's flavorful, and it's light. It's not strong at all.
All right, we're moving on because God knows this is taking too long. All right, so my number 3 is the Balmoral, the follow-up to the latest in their Signaturas series. And so this is quite simple. I haven't smoked it yet, but we have some somewhere. It's very, very simple. This is a cigar that's made by Lafleur Dominicana for somebody else. It's not to say that Lafleur has not made private labels before. They have, but it's a relatively rare occurrence. And I'm curious to see what it tastes like because Lafleur has a very... speaking of companies that got defined profiles, Lafleur has a relatively defined profile, and particularly the tobaccos that come out of Lafleur taste a certain way. And I'm curious to see if this is basically just another Lafleur with a different band and being sold by somebody else, or if this is in fact a different cigar. And for whatever it's worth, it was blended in collaboration with Boris Witterman's Zavahio. So who knows what that means, and I guess we'll see. But I'm curious to smoke it for those reasons.
Yes, and it sounds very interesting to me. I didn't see the booth, but I feel like that it's I feel like that they're a company that I'm going to give them a chance regardless of what they're releasing. I feel like that they've proven to me, at least in terms of my palate, that I'm going to probably enjoy whatever they release. At least
Lafleur or Ahio?
What's that?
Lafleur or Ahio?
Ahio. Both, but
but like, I mean, in that picture that's on the screen right now, like, it's next to the cigar they made with EP Carrillo, and so it's like, there's not a lot of similarities, I would say, between EP Carrillo and Lafleur's blending profiles.
Certainly not.
I mean, some of it, like, I think,
but that just makes me want to try it more, right? I mean,
no, that's the curious question. I'm curious to see it. That's kind of the end of it. So you're number 3.
What is my number 3?
It is the Jura State BOTL in the Lancero size. That's not the Lancero size, but that's all we had a picture of. So,
yes, very interesting. They didn't actually have them together. They actually put them like way apart. So the BOTL was not something that had been announced, I don't believe, when we did our first list.
It was not.
And so, essentially, in 2012, the Jura State got together with Podman,
Tim.
who's a retailer. Tim, yes, who's a retailer in...
Was a retailer.
Yeah, where?
He was originally in Illinois and then opened up, I think, in Florida, if I'm not mistaken.
I wasn't even close. So
he
anyway,
worked for a shop in Illinois and then opened up his own operation, and I want to say it was based out of Florida.
They released a blend specifically that he had done, that he'd made up, and it was called BOTL after the forum that was big back in 2012 before the Facebook killed basically all the forums. And it was a very, very good cigar. I would call it legendary when it was released, especially in the Lancero Vitola. And I enjoyed the hell out of them. And they were gone very, very quickly. And it was something that I've always
super
looked back
limited.
on. Yeah, super limited. 200 boxes, something like that.
Yeah,
crazy limited. And they were very, very good. And so I would love to be able to try one. They did not have any Lanceros. They had the Coronas. And I smoked one, but it was in Vegas, and I don't really put any stock in anything like that. But the Lancero is what I enjoyed from the original release, and that's the one that I'm really looking forward to trying.
Yeah, no, I'm curious. I'm curious to see.
You say we have some of the originals left.
We do.
I haven't even seen any of those, so I don't know.
We do have some of them left. I'm curious to see. I think more so. Did they say if it was the same blend?
They did not say whether it was the same blend.
Yeah.
I did see some Facebook comments from Tim who mentioned that it's his blend, and that
so if it is in fact
he wasn't consulted.
Oh, so if in fact it is the same blend, I'm curious to see kind of if it's held like what Jura State can make these days, because that blend was. Like, he went down, blended his cigar on the Jura State Cigar Safari trip, and then worked on it, and that was the blend that came out. Whereas this is a production cigar they're going to try to sell more than 200 boxes of. So that changes things, and, magic of time.
It was an amazing release, so if it comes close to that, it's going to be good.
All right, my number 2 is the Tayawahe Escassos series. They were on display once again this year. Escassos is a sort of banner for Pete to do a whole bunch of small batch Miami-made stuff, not necessarily limited editions, but limited production in different sizes. So you've got 4 there. The one on the far left is probably not is close to Église, and then Petit Église, something I don't know off the top of my head, and then the Grand Tayawahe, the Diadema. And I'm curious to see. I'm a big fan of particularly the cigar on the right, like that size of cigar. And so these are not going to be cheap, $40 to $60, which is kind of crazy when you think about the fact that the Petite Église might be $40 and the Grand might be $60. We may see them in a very small quantity at the end of the year. They're going to be small quantity regardless. It's going to be like 25 to 50 boxes per kind of shipment. But I'm curious to see kind of what the balls to the wall Tayawahe project looks like. We've seen other companies. Pete's not
his unicorn.
No, I don't think it's that case. And like unicorn, I don't. Should probably have turned the camera on for my facial reactions to that. Look, I'm curious to see what happens if Pete thinks I'm less I'm less interested when a cigar manufacturer says, I'm going to make something and it's going to be expensive. I'm more curious to see like the initial premise of that Sokka question, which is what happens if I have no limitations. I would argue in the case of Unicorn that there like still were limitations. But I'm curious when they get close to saying it's not that. And the other thing I would say for anyone at home, just to like peel back the curtain a little bit or a lot, is that these cigars don't they don't cost that much more than a typical cigar. The reality is that unless you are getting actively screwed, it's pretty challenging to make a cigar at a manufacturing cost of $3.50. It's tough.
Even with, and I just want to play devil's advocate here. Even with the absolute best tobacco, the most expensive tobacco that you have to go through and find the one leaf that is just friggin' amazing.
Those two things aren't necessarily related.
Well, it's all costs. It all something that goes into the cost of the cigar.
I guess my point is that like, just because it's the most expensive doesn't make it the best. So yes, you could find the Amazon River tobacco and 37-year-old Cameroon wrapper and whatever the hell else, and you could make a cigar. I mean, Christ, you could just make a cigar all out of wrapper. You could dry some of it out, try to turn it back into filler. Maybe it burns, maybe it doesn't. And that would be super expensive. But the reality is the manufacturing costs are so low and relatively within, like, if you looked at the curve, they're relatively within the same ballpark that it's very, very challenging before packaging to make a cigar without actively being screwed. And even at those price points, you're probably getting screwed to make a cigar that's going to be $4 a cost.
Well, I wonder
if you were getting the tobacco from Hawaii, because they grow tobacco in Hawaii. Like if you had like the American, like I mean that was the thing. So the American was going to be that project we're going to see just like what the premium cost looked like, because it was all American ingredients, American labor, American packaging, etc. And it still ended up being like $20. So like yeah, you could get tobacco from Hawaii and Japan, and maybe you have somebody grow some 17 plants in the Maldives.
The final cost, doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't cost a lot of money. His margin could be lower on that.
Yeah, but I mean,
he could be making $1 a cigar instead of whatever.
No, I certainly think that probably played into it. But what I'm saying is that it's not, when you see the Davidoff Oro Blanco is $500 because Davidoff wanted to have it be $500, not because they decided that they needed to make $500 per cigar, or whatever they make on their cost, whatever that number is.
I wonder what the most expensive cigar to produce is. Cameroon wrapped, maybe?
Well, it depends on what.
A Cameroon Puro.
Well, the most expensive cigar to produce is the one that you don't sell.
It's deep.
Yeah. But no, like it's not, I'm curious to see though with Pete what it looks like if there aren't as many limitations. I guess it's the best way to get back on track. All right, and we should power through this because this is taking far longer than what it was supposed to take. Number 2 on your list and probably on my list as well is...
I don't know.
It's the Illusione Singularity 2019.
Nice.
Diadema.
Yes. So, Dion, I covered Dion's booth this year. And went by and I was talking to Dion and I said, hey, so where are these cigars at? I'd love to take a picture of them. He goes, oh, we don't have any here. And I was like, what? You don't have any cigars here? And he goes, no, we didn't, I'm like, okay. So how am I going to take a picture of one? He goes, well, I've got one of them. And I go, okay. So put it down, shot a picture of it, and there you go. This is one of those that, Dion, anything Dion makes, I'm going to smoke. I've smoked probably just about everything that he's put out at one time or another. I'm not saying that I've smoked multiples, but at one time or another, I've smoked just about everything he's put out. And I've enjoyed the vast majority of them, 2015, 2016, Singularity notwithstanding. 2013, when was it?
2011 and 2012.
Yeah. Whenever that was. And they were not horrible. They were not great. But regardless, the vast majority of the cigars that Dion makes I've enjoyed, and I'm going to smoke the hell out of this, and I'm going to enjoy it probably. It's the first time he's used this Vitola, and it's the Singularity series is something he goes all out for. So I'm really looking forward to try it. I actually have one. He actually graciously gave me one, so I am looking forward to smoking that when I'm on vacation.
Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to smoking it. Maybe I'll steal yours before you leave.
Maybe.
So...
We could cut it in half.
I don't know if we did this correctly, because your number 1 is next. So I'm going to go...
Well, then that wouldn't be correct.
Yeah, I'm going to go and move that. So, here we are. My number one. It is, I think, the same as it was at the beginning when we did the preview show. It's Baca from Romercraft Tobacco. I did smoke the Petite cigar, the one on the far left of your screen. And it was what I expected. It was a Cameron wrapped, I would say 5.5 out of 10 on a Romercraft scale. But I also, like, as much as...
Strength-wise.
Just kind of overall. I mean, it was not like rating wise, but like on a strength body wise, yeah.
Right.
It was certainly not a Neanderthal with a Cameron wrapper. I would say it would be slightly less than a Cro-Magnon or an Aquitaine. Excuse me, but slightly above the Intemperance. Here's the problem: is that I know from prior experience, both with Romercraft and with everyone else, that those smaller sizes are not necessarily indicative of how the blend is. So I'm really curious to smoke it in some of the larger ring gauge sizes, and I hope to do so when it ships sometime in the fall.
Yeah, I can't wait to try one either. I wish I'd been able to.
Thank you, Burkes. That was a dig at me for those of you at home, because he got one extra sample and gave it to me.
Only one sample. Actually, and
didn't we get the collections?
Nope. Well, yeah, we can't smoke those.
Yeah, so you got...
I can't smoke those.
No, you walked out of that booth with 8 Bacas.
Can't smoke those.
I understand that, but you gave me the only one that we could smoke.
The only one thing Skip said was, don't give this to Charlie. I know it's on his list. I don't want him to smoke it. And I was like, Skip, you're not the boss.
Why didn't you... Well, that's enlightening on your part.
That's actually not what I said.
Okay.
He's a very large man.
That was
okay,
not nice.
So...
Number one.
Number one.
List?
Yes, what's number one?
Which I think is kind of a cop-out.
Ugh. The numero uno from
Hoya de
Nicaragua.
Yikes.
I didn't know if I wanted to say JDN or...
Probably not.
Hoya de Nicaragua. This was our number one cigar of the year last year, and there was a good reason for that. It was fantastic in just about every way. I think it probably got one of the highest scores that we've ever given on this site in terms of the overall consensus between the four of us. Is what I believe you said at that point, although I could be mistaken
think
on
that's
that.
the case. I think what I said was that it was the closest top 25 between number 1 and 2 that we've ever had.
What was number 2, you remember?
It was the Le Creme Bellicoso. It was 0.0807 points off.
This was fantastic. I enjoyed the hell out of it, and I cannot wait to try it
committed
again.
To buying...
I have already committed to buying boxes, yes, because if it's as good as what I said. I have not tried it. Patrick smoked it. He said it was, again, fantastic. So I loved the hell out of it. I thought it was great, and I'm glad they're making it again.
All right, we're going to take 3 questions, and then we're going to get out of here because it's already ran much longer than anticipated. So, question number 1, what smaller company impressed you the most? I don't know what smaller...
Small means what exactly?
Yeah, I don't know. That wasn't defined here. And also, I don't know what... I'll say this. I was really impressed by Cavalier's booth, even though I knew it was a prefab booth, but it was oh, wow, that's a...
Yeah,
not a 10 by 10.
I mean, what are you talking about? Are you talking about booth? Are you talking about their
That's the
releases?
thing, I don't know.
You're talking about... here's the problem.
Well, I smoked... I think I was in Vegas for 9 days. I think I smoked 7 cigars, and the only cigars that I actually finished were the cigar I smoked on the first day I was in Vegas and the last cigar I smoked. And the only reason why I finished the last cigar I smoked is because I made an effort. I was like...
What was that? What cigar was that?
It was Metalac from Foundation.
Nice. I think that
and the Le Creme Bellicoso from Crown Heads. That was the first cigar I smoked.
I think there's too many unsaid unknowns here to be able to answer that question.
I don't know, but what comes to mind when you say what smaller company impressed you? Besides, please define that question so I don't offend 17 people.
Right. I mean, the problem is that the other problem is that I didn't see half the booths at least, and the ones that you saw that you were impressed with, I never even walked into.
I'm with you on that. I would say Cavalier on my end is probably that's the one that initially comes to mind. Is oh, this is impressive. Both the booth, the offerings. I've smoked. They have the Cavalier White Lancero and the Cavalier White Salamones, neither of which are new, but are sort of coming back in limited capacity. And then they have a new LE, the LE19. For those that remember last year, the LE18 got 94 points on a Redux from Patrick. So a good cigar. Maybe not a 94-point cigar in my opinion, but I haven't scored it. So I've smoked quite a few of them though.
Yeah, I can't. I got nothing on that. Sorry.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
All right.
You talk plenty, so it's all right.
Next question. Do the ST DuPont lighters ping at different pitches? I don't...
Oh my God, with the friggin' ST DuPont pings again.
I don't know if do they ping at a different pitch than the normal ones? No. But every ST DuPont lighter is kind of unique in its what it sounds like. And so I'm sure they're slightly different. And finally, can you talk about the Bugatti lighters? One issue would be the butane replacements. Is it easy to get them? How well these were received in the show?
I can't tell you.
You covered the booth?
Yes, I did. I can't tell you how easy they're going to get, but the impression that I got from them was that they are going to be shipping them just like any normal butane. It's not going to be something you have to buy.
Interesting question, though. I think about it.
Online or something.
Well, yeah, but like if you're a retailer, do you really want to carry these random tiny butane canisters?
Well, remember, you can use those as normal butane as well.
I understand that, but
they're actually pretty cool to... looks like we've got a package coming in. They're actually pretty cool to use, and if you can use them without any issues in terms of putting them, putting it in different, lighters, I think it'd be pretty cool. The price didn't seem out of line to me. And in terms of usability, yeah, I mean, it's very simple to use. You basically open it up, you take it out, it comes out very easily. You put it back in, it's done. It's built around the idea of being able to not have to worry about, needing to know what you're doing in order to actually do it. Perfect for me.
And on that note, I think we're going to call this a day because we're not going to get a better fucking quote than that. So this has been our coverage of the 2019 IPCPR Convention Trade Show, at least on Facebook Live. I hope you've enjoyed it. We still have more coverage. Yeah, at least parts of it. We still have more coverage of the 2019 IPCPR Convention and Trade Show coming. So there is, like I said, about 20 booth posts that need to go up, including some big ones. Rocky... Prometheus on your end, LA Blue, ST DuPont, Vector KGM, I don't know, Daniel Marshall, Terrazona. That's the end of my list. I don't know what you still have on yours. But anyway, so there's Alec Bradley still needs to go up because we're trying to find the video of it. Hopefully I can find that. So anyway, so between now and at least tomorrow, maybe not, maybe Sunday as well, we'll have more booth posts going up, and then we will do the traditional recap post on Monday, hopefully. I can't wait to write that. And we'll also have an editorial coming about the much talked about CigarCon. We certainly have shared our thoughts, or I've shared my thoughts on video, but I have...
Weren't we supposed to talk about that? Was it on the list?
We were, but we've already taken an hour and 15 minutes. And unfortunately, you and I have...
I'm sure that we could talk about it in 2 minutes.
I'm sure we could. or 2 hours. But anyway, so we will... there'll be more thoughts coming about the trade show. I'd like to certainly thank all of our advertisers, but in particular Dabit Off and Jura State. We spend a ton of money to try to cover the trade show, both in terms of equipment and services, and then the booth that we have. Personnel, gigantic bill. We overpay Brian Burt crazily. It's not a cheap endeavor, and so I thank them for not only putting up the money, but also then giving us the prizes to give away, because I know you guys like that as well. I think it's safe to say we covered the trade show in a completely different manner than anyone else. And I think of all the things that we do, with maybe the exception of legislation, Halfwheel is a clear leader when it comes to covering the trade show, and I'm certainly proud of that and proud of the work that we do. But I also know that one of the reasons why we're able to do that is because we have people that are willing to help pay for the work, because it's not cheap and it requires a lot. So thankful to them, thankful to all of our team, the team that you know very well, Brooks, Patrick, and Brian Burt, as well as two people that work behind the scenes and have done so. Heather has worked for us the last 2 years as our sort of editorial assistant on site, and unfortunately only worked for us for a little bit of the trade show, or roughly half of it this year. Would have been nice to have her for the full 4 days. Hopefully next year we do so. It's a big help to making sure that we can put coverage up live. And I think, once again, one of the big impediments, if anyone else wants to do live coverage from the trade show like Halfwheel does, you need to have extra hands. And then Kim, who has worked for us for a while now, at least 5 years, but maybe longer than that, who is the offsite photo editor, who handles all the photo editing, so that way Burkes doesn't have to worry about it. Without those two, it would not be... You would not have 100, and I think we're going to have, it may not be 150 exactly, maybe 149 booths, but it's a much more extensive coverage, and it also comes out a lot quicker. And so I'm extremely thankful to everyone involved. Obviously, all the manufacturers for giving us the time. The IPCPR, I know that we have done things that they are particularly pleased about, but they have historically been a great company to work with. And so I hope to be back next year. This will be the last time you and I talk about IPCPR on Facebook Live.
Please don't.
Do you want to pour some out for PCA?
No, I don't want to pour some out.
All right. So on that note, we're going to call it a day. Thank you to Patrick Legree as well for monitoring the comment section. And then we're going to kick off sort of a weird IPCPR tradition where I cook Burkes steak for lunch. So look forward to that.
We're doing that today?
Why do you think there's a pan right there?
Oh my God, that's awesome.
All right, on that note.